Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and I'm here as always with my good friend, colleague, and co-host Jim Gurley. And today we're going to talk about self-projection. And as we always do, I'm going to, Jim came up with the topic, and we had some pregame on it, and we've got a really kind of excited about this episode. Self-projection requires commitment to self-awareness and taking accountability for your own feelings and actions, which dovetails very nicely into our flywheel, which begins with the self. And Jim, you can walk them around that when I pass the baton back to you. In more detail, let me read the definition.
Yeah, but Mark, just to kind of just pick up where you left off in terms of our episodes, they naturally all seem to focus around self-awareness because we have this framework that we created in the Imperfect Men's Club. The imperfection is the perfection, and in the center of that is self, and that's evolved over the years now of these different episodes. It's all about the self-awareness, especially at this stage in our lives. And so when the topic resonated, because self-awareness has a lot to do with self-projection, and I appreciated your approach on this was, well, before you talk about self-projection, you have to get clear on projection, and then that's really what we're going to break down, right? I find it very helpful, and then of course share our own individual experiences. This was inspired by, I think I mentioned before, an relationship, or anyway, it's really doesn't matter, but it was an interaction with this particular person, and you realize, hey, what happened? Something, the dynamic changed. What's going on? And so this is going on in all relationships, but I think it's personal to both of us, particularly you and your life experiences and mine. So let's have some fun and break this down.
Yeah, I think everything we do, you can thread back to self-awareness. And I think one of the nice things about the podcast, as it has evolved, is that we've recognized that, and it's very interesting, and it makes sense. I mean, most of us, I find in this life, particularly in my business, where I'm trying to help people move forward, they don't want to do any of this work. It's too hard for a lot of people. So anyway, that might be an entire other episode. But let me read the definition of projection in psychology. Projection is defined as the act of assigning one's own thoughts, emotions, or desires to another person, often without their awareness. It is a way of coping with uncomfortable or threatening aspects of oneself by externalizing them onto others. Projection is a defense mechanism in psychology where an individual unconsciously attributes their own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to others. And this is done to avoid confronting their own unacceptable impulses or traits. And then to your
you
point,
mentioned your ex. I mentioned women. For no specific reason. And then the word narcissist came up.
Yeah.
So when you put them together, I think that this is, again, certainly not unique to women. This has happened to everybody's doing this, but it's just being aware of it and how we do project our often it's our childhood, it's our past experiences, all these things on somebody, sometimes unfairly. And that's
well,
where
it's always unfair. But it's just sometimes unconscious. And so I think
we'll break that down then, right? That's
well,
kind of the next.
I'm not a psychologist, so I have to be self-aware that I don't get in front of my skis. But yeah, I mean, my experience with projection was significant because my ex-wife was very gifted at that, and she went deep and wide.
That's the first time I've heard you say something complimentary to her and her personality.
Well, let's just say if she's listening, I don't give a fuck.
But I don't think this is where you're going with it. I feel
no. The fact that we can laugh about it is healthy, I think, and there's a lot of funny stuff. In hindsight, a lot of it's funny, as hard as it was at the time. But I think this distinction between the conscious and the unconscious stuff is next on the list. I mean, self-projection and projection are essentially the same thing. I don't know that I could draw a distinction between the two of them, because if you're projecting, it's yourself that's doing the projecting. So,
interesting.
But I'm interested in this difference between the conscious and unconscious. And I think that my understanding of conscious is that you're aware that you're doing it, and and the unconscious, you're not aware that you're doing it. And I think on the conscious side, presenting an image, it's when you deliberately act to make others see you in a certain way.
Yeah. Well,
That's
break down the first three bullet points in terms of the definition of conscious self projection. So,
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, presenting a specific image. This is when you deliberately act to make others see you in a certain way, and that can be, that can be positive, but I don't think it's
sure,
authentic. I think
especially
if
if you're
you're,
applying for a job, right?
yeah,
That's
well,
your
yeah, your confidence, maybe you're ratcheting up your confidence a little, or your appearance of being confident, your appearance of being calm when you're nervous, your appearance of being calm when you're anxious. There's all kinds of places you could go. I don't think that's harmful. I don't even think that it's necessarily misleading. I think we all do that. When you're walking around by yourself, you're not conscious of anything. You're thinking thoughts. But when you're walking around in front of people, you might change your posture. You might change your eye contact. So that one's kind of subtle. But I think that the unconscious one is in the psychological process
Yeah.
where
But
you.
before we jump onto that one,
Yeah.
this is interesting. It's a part of the bullet points, and I caught myself doing this intentionally the other day. It was a positive experience, right? But it says a person might project an image of being a strong leader by speaking confidently. It also a good posture, even how we walk,
Hmm.
has was an example of a conscious self projection, and yeah, how you carry yourself, how you interact with people. Body position is a huge part of being conscious and projecting a certain image. So like
Yeah.
I
I
said, some
think
of this is
the
really good.
I think the last I looked, it was 55% of communication is body language. So
Interesting.
I don't think most people know that. I don't think I knew it at the time. I thought I knew it was a lot, but I didn't think it was
Another
55%.
one, people will judge you on how you walk
Hmm.
into a room,
Hmm.
how you walk out of a room, how you walk up to somebody. So just the walk, how you carry your body
Yeah,
is
I like to present myself as a confident, happy, humble guy, and I definitely, if I'm walking into a room, particularly with people that I don't know, and I'm in some capacity supposed to impress, yeah, I puff it up a little bit for sure. You
yeah,
know, Posture's a big deal.
yeah.
So the unconscious piece, where you project your own feelings, thoughts, or behaviors onto others, consequences, unchecked projection can lead to distorted perceptions of others and damage relationships. Yeah, this is what I experienced. What I experienced was a doing it in an unconscious fashion, meaning not being aware of it in the moment, but and then being confronted about doing it and denying it. You know, like even though perhaps she knew she wasn't able to deny it, she was fully capable of trying. And I think that's
Well, now you're talking about other people. So there's two, we're kind of shifting the conversation a little bit, right? There's dealing with people that have no self-awareness of their unconscious projections. And then we're talking about ourselves. But I think it's almost two different conversations. Are we talking about our interactions with somebody that has basically zero unconscious self-projection, which is borderline narcissist at times, right? They're
yep.
doing it either, and they don't know that's just how they're hardwired. They don't have empathy. They're not even aware of it, and they're once they're done with you, they'll just do it with somebody else.
Yeah, yeah, and they'll take the behavior and the feeling that they have, or the way they're behaving, and project it on you, as if and that's what I told you in the first domestic violence thing that happened with me. There was a list of things that I was being accused of, and every single one of them was something she had done or was doing.
Yeah,
It
that's
was I remember that being like, holy shit, you know. And maybe that was the time when I finally said, well, I think I understand what this was now, you know.
yeah,
And because I just classified it as mentally ill or nuts or crazy or whatever, just mean. But
yeah,
it was way deeper than that. I bet
yeah.
if a therapist could get their hands on her, that'd be a very interesting study. But I think the other piece of this is when they are called out on it, they
Hmm.
deny it.
I don't
So
like that.
even though they're unconsciously doing it, when they get caught, they're in total denial. As a matter of fact,
Hmm.
she just got angry. What are you talking about? That's bullshit. Like, whew, you know.
Yeah,
So I think this one, the last piece of this is the ways that you can perhaps identify it and then perhaps impact it positively, which even when I'm saying that, I'm thinking to myself, I didn't have a chance. So I think that in the most severe situations, one of the bad things about this unconscious self-projection is there's nothing you can do about it. However, this particular article suggests that there are things that you could do to reduce it, and I suppose that's reasonable. And
Reduce not doing it. Not again. This is two conversations we're having, which is fine. It's dealing with somebody that has absolutely no self awareness or doesn't care, which again is borderline narcissism.
Mhm.
Versus um, us being very self aware to make sure that we're not doing this to other people. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
think
almost
yeah,
think we need to break it up into to two different buckets so that we don't merge the two together. That's the way I
yeah.
look at
No,
it.
I know what you're talking about, and I think you're right. I think this recognizing the pattern in this case is recognizing the pattern in yourself.
Hmm.
And then after we go these bullets, maybe we can reflect on what it might mean to recognize it in someone else.
Yeah.
So
But going back to what you were saying, when you do confront somebody like, hey, give them the benefit of the doubt, I think sometimes that's just by nature who you are, that you want to give them benefit of the doubt. So you're having a conversation. Hey, I may be projecting this on you, or depending who they are, ask them, is it possible you're projecting that on me? Probably the difference between a normal, reasonable person would say, "Oh, I appreciate that opportunity to think about that," versus a narcissist, which is just going to lose it because
yeah.
that they don't ever want to be um, called out or ever want to be accountable for what they say or do.
Hmm.
It's part of narcissism. They're always looking to blame it on somebody else or move their pain to or whatever they want. They just don't have the ability to care. It's an empathy thing that
Yeah,
certain
a
people just don't have.
complete lack of empathy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're policing yourself in this regard, to your point, the first and most difficult step is to realize that you're projecting. As you
Mhm.
know, it's an unconscious defense mechanism, and the signs that they cite are strong and sudden reactions,
Mhm.
in the intensity and immediacy of negative reaction, and
So the
it.
first one, so recognizing the patterns of,
Mhm.
so it's a defense mechanism. Break that down for me. When we unconscious defense mechanism, what's it defending?
Um, yeah, well, I think to my interpretation is you're bringing emotions to a conversation. Let's say, just for as an
Hmm.
example, you've come from a
Yeah.
very distasteful conversation or something traumatic or the relative degree of trauma, and are you bringing it into the next engagement with the next person unfairly? I think that's where
Hmm.
the self-awareness comes in, and I think that's where the pausing comes in. It's just like, okay, well, if I don't check myself and I bring that trauma with me, I'm going to take it out on the
Hmm.
person I'm talking to. And I just, if I'm aware of that, that's less likely to happen. And so,
Yeah.
and I think the pattern
Do you
piece, it's
notice
like,
that with new relationships after that, that after going through that, your relationship now did it improve your ability to have relationships, better relationships because you have recognized this and it is conscious? Do you find that
that's a good question.
to
I
apply?
don't know. I think I reverted back to my former self with a couple of exceptions. I think I became a better listener, and I think you'd have to ask my girlfriend that, I suppose. But I also, to remind you, I also took 10 years off, so I had plenty of
Mhm.
time to diffuse myself of any emotional scars. And when I went back into the dating game, I was ready. I don't think I brought any of that shit with me. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think I did.
Another thing about relationships. There's different phases, right? There's different phases of relationships. So, like your first, say, 90 days, that's the honeymoon phase. Everything's wonderful. The person can't do anything wrong,
Hmm.
and then the next phase. I don't know exactly what they're. I think there's five different phases of a relationship. Is now it's the novelty's worn off, and you're building trust, and then
Hmm.
there's another one after that, and then but you really don't know the person until you've gone through all those different phases.
Well, I think, yeah, you have to
Because we
have
all
a,
wear our best masks in the beginning, and
yeah.
then later on these things come out.
Yeah, well, I think you're also starting to identify the little peccadillos that you're either going to tolerate or you're not going to tolerate. And
Yeah.
And sometimes those are little tiny things that are silly, and sometimes those are a little bit bigger and require some
Yeah.
consideration. But yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I don't have the five phases in my head, but
Yeah.
I know what you're
Well, the
talking
other one
about.
that came up was interesting is how this is, I don't know, again, I ended up with a bunch of narcissistic videos, and it was talking about how uh, yeah, the narcissists, that the empathy was a big one, but they also I lost my train of thought on that. It'll come back to me in a second. But I mean, again, you could speak more to it than I could as far as the behavior. Um,
Well, bipolar's in there somewhere too, bipolar's in there somewhere because the ease of moving from a ecstatically high positive state to an angry mad state with for no reason immediately. It's just
oh, interesting.
that's pretty crazy too. I think they're
Yeah.
all related. I think they're all
Oh yeah,
related.
it's all related. The one I was looking with is yeah, they go into almost resentment, contempt mode where they grow to dislike somebody and everything about them. So they flip, and when they switch, their whole goal or mission is to make you wrong. That's all they
Hmm.
want to do is to make you wrong,
Yep.
regardless of what the circumstances are. The brain just clicks, and then it goes to the next phase where everything is this other person's problem, and they don't even know they're doing it. They have no ability to even pull it back because they don't
Well,
care
Well,
about the
this
outcome.
is rampant in our political discourse as well.
Yeah.
It's rampant. Everybody's accusing the other person of what they're doing themselves. It's kind of crazy.
Well,
And
it's very, yes, especially with the standoff in the as a Congress. But that, yeah, one, if you hear the Democrats talk, they say one thing, and then the Republicans say almost exactly the same thing, and they're both accusing themselves of exactly what the other one's doing.
yeah.
It also reminds me of this the election as far as moving the boundaries to gaining a political advantage.
Hmm. Yeah, I can't
That's been
remember what
going
they
on since there's been
what do they call that?
election
Gerrymandering?
gerrymandering or
Yeah.
whatever they call it. It's
Yeah.
part of whoever's in power has gets the
Yeah.
ability to move the lines.
Yeah, well, it's
So
a lot of the political stuff is just that. It's like whoever's in power gets to talk first, and then, the
yeah,
other side says the exact opposite. So I don't know. That's well, let's stay away from politics for today.
yeah, yeah.
So the second thing that they recommend that you can do here, and this is my favorite because
Um,
the pause, and I think the pause, if you're pausing in life, then you're self-aware in my estimation because you're
mhm,
recognizing that I'm not
mhm,
yet contained. I'm not yet buttoned up emotionally to make the next statement. So, what's the old saying? If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
mhm,
That's
mhm.
what a pause is for me. And I told you, I use it with salespeople. I use it all the time. And what's interesting. I'll tell that story real quick. Is when someone's disrespectfully to you on the phone, making a cold call or something, right? And you just stop them and say, "Excuse me, I need to
Mhm,
interrupt you, and I have to ask you what I've done to deserve the disrespect that you're giving me right now, because I don't want to make that same mistake with the next person I talk to." In
mhm.
my experience, 90% of the people apologize because they're unconsciously doing it.
Interesting.
They brought their baggage from somewhere else, and they didn't check it at the door before they picked up the phone. And so that's
Mhm,
cool. And you know what happens when you get an apology from someone? Now you have the
mhm.
opportunity to really develop a relationship with them because that's a
Yeah, build
transparent,
trust.
yeah, that's trust and
Trust
that's
that what they're
transparency.
saying is true, and you've taken the time to pause, think about it, and maybe even ask a question to clarify that
Yep. Yep.
what they're saying. You're interpreting that the way they want. So
Well,
interesting about, yeah, just not just pause, but pause and question your thoughts, or even this happened recently. This conversation was going on and on. It was and I paused, or I asked a question to get context, um, which I thought was a very kind thing to do because well, I wasn't interrupted. I didn't mean it wasn't an interruption. It was really, hey, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying because what you're saying is a lot of information, and as a result, I was pausing, asking questions that was interpreted as I was interrupting,
mm,
and
mm.
I can understand that, but I wasn't like I was changing the subject. I was just trying to get context.
Yeah,
Turned into a complete kind of a mess in terms of emotions, and that. So it's
Yeah, I think the pause is a really powerful thing to do, and I try to do it. I try to do it with everything and everybody, and I don't do that successfully because I think it's impossible. You know,
Mhm.
the other part of that pause is what am I feeling right now? You know, trying to
Mhm.
figure out, is it fear, is it shame, is it anger, is it insecurity, and you know, don't let the thought jump straight to the other person's flaw. You know,
Yeah.
and is
Yeah.
this
The other one on this is patterns. So if something happens one time, hey, it happens one time. Right? If it happens two times, like, hey, that's a coincidence, right? But if it's three times, then that's a pattern. That's worth pausing, getting some context, getting some understanding. Um, so that there, yeah, some of this is just normal interactions with humans. But if there's a pattern of it happening over and over again, it's probably time to slow it down, pause,
Well,
and
you know, what the overriding theme for me goes, like you said, goes back to self-awareness because if as soon as you say, am I being self-aware? Am I being conscious? Am I accepting the responsibility for my positions, my actions, my words? Because when someone does that and you and then comes in and you know projects on you, then you call them on it, they're going to apologize because they're
yeah,
self-aware. They're owning their behavior, right?
yeah,
So I think the word kind that you used is a good word. Kind is telling people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, right?
yes,
And
yeah,
so
no doubt.
that has come up in a number of our
And intention.
episodes.
There's intention has a lot to do with it too. If that was not their intention, then yeah, pause, think about it, recalibrate the conversation. But if
Well, you know what's interesting about that, Jim, and I agree with it conceptually, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? That's a
yeah,
phrase. So
oh boy,
intention, claiming to have a good intention and continuing to repeat the behavior is not authentic, right? That's a
yeah,
conflict.
I
You
would agree. And just because you have intentions maybe of helping or saving them doesn't mean they want to be helped or saved.
Not at all. Not at all. And we both know, you know, you can't get help unless you are the one that wants to get help. No one can make you get help. You can't, it's
Yeah,
the same concept, you know, it's the same
yeah,
concept. And then,
yeah.
you know, then
Or at
there's
least the ability to recognize that you need help, or that you're projecting in these pains or these past experiences on everybody you interact with. I just find it interesting. It comes out at different phases, at different times, right? You don't know in the beginning who they are, what they're dealing with. These over time will come out. So it's
well, then and
it,
this thing kind of ties up with the what we've kind of started talking about, which is they're calling it radical accountability. And you know taking ownership of your emotional landscape, you know, and saying you're sorry, you know. But we talked before about sorry, and sorry is also one of those things where you know there's no such, you can't, it's not an apology if you add an attachment to the word I'm sorry and say but, you know, but you shouldn't have done it, da, 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 da. That's not an apology, you know, and a lot of people do that, you know,
yeah.
because
So
you
the word
know,
sorry has become a filler word for many people.
yeah.
It's a filler word. But as you said, I don't think it's much a filler word. Is it's it's basically what it's saying is uh, I've said sorry five times, but obviously I'm not that sorry because I keep saying it.
Yeah.
So if you start
Yeah.
off every sentence that you have with "I'm sorry," or you end it with "I'm sorry," it's your intentions probably are you're really not that sorry. That's
Yeah. Well, another interesting one, we were talking about the differences between men and women, and I think women are more prone to this than men. Not that men don't do this, they certainly do. But I think, and when I think about why that might be the case, I think generally speaking, it's a fair statement to say that women are more emotional than men,
yeah.
which means that they're less likely to be able to control their emotions than men. I don't, I'd be interested in the argument to that. You know, I'm not suggesting I'm 100% correct, but I think I am. You know, that's been my lived
Whether they,
experience.
I think there's no question. I don't think that's being sexist or that's a reality. Whether they say it is, is the difference, right? Just because they're emotional, they may be able to hold it in and not say it
Maybe
out loud. So
that wasn't my experience.
Well, I can only speak for firsthand experiences, and again, I've been married for over 35 years with the same person for close to 40 years, and uh, yeah, she's definitely one that would not say it, but and at times that's probably good. At other times it's not good because just because you're not saying it doesn't mean you don't think it or you don't
Well,
mean it.
I never liked the idea that there was unrest but it wasn't going to be addressed. That's
Uh,
the worst for me because then people go silent
yeah.
and things
Well,
simmer.
when you tried to put rest to it or you tried to address these, what was her reaction?
It was just a complete and total denial, and usually anger, or it's the classic three options for the far lefty. It's the same thing. It's like I'm going to raise my voice, I'm going to change the topic, or I'm going to walk away, and that's what happened. And and then when we went through seven different therapists,
Yeah.
it would literally there was a pattern. This was a pattern, Jim. We'd start off, and it would be fine in the first session, and then the second session we would start talking about me and my role
Hmm.
in this. And then the third one, they'd start talking about her, and she'd get up and start screaming and walk out. And I asked all seven of them.
That's a pattern.
I looked at them. Yeah, hell yeah, it's a pattern. I looked at all of them and said, "What do I do with that?" Not
Mhm.
one of them had an answer for me.
Yeah.
So I think that my position that at some point with some people you just have to walk away.
Oh, absolutely.
And
And like you said, if the pattern, that's a narcissistic pattern. Once they've been, let's just say, identified as being that, they move on to the next person.
yeah,
They don't want,
they're predatory.
they're predatory. Yeah, they
Yeah.
move on to the next person. They can start it over, and that'll last for a while. Some people will, with good intentions, they're constantly seeking out that next, they say, victim or that next person that will basically listen to their shit.
Well,
So,
the other thing that I think bears mentioning, because we have a couple more minutes here, is I think that there's two things that come to mind. This word "fine." How are you feeling, honey? I'm fine.
mhm,
In my experience, that never means they're fine. In my
mhm,
experience, that means I don't want to talk about it right now, and I'm not fine at all. I don't know
mhm.
what your experience has been with that, but that word is it's a powerfully misused word in my experience. You know, so
Well, it's a facade. At times, that's what they're doing. They're making it, look to the outside world like everything is fine,
mhm.
and those are often the most miserable people. Um,
Yeah,
in the
I think
public,
that
they want to project everything is fine, but it's not, and that's because they haven't done the work. And this is, back to kind of like you said, our final one is practice radical accountability.
yeah.
One, you don't how to interact with people like this, but two, you don't want to become this person. And I do think it's common to become this person. So self awareness and just accountability. Making sure that you're it even talked about, either meditation or journaling, you know, scanning your experiences, your interaction with other people to make sure you're not doing this. And if somebody's doing it to you, identify it, have a conversation with them if it's an important conversation, or like you said, just move on because,
Yeah, I think that my experience, because I do have comparative experience now, is
mm,
when I have said or done something to my current girlfriend that upsets her even slightly, which doesn't happen
mhm,
very often. Um, I immediately pick up on it, and fine is either fine or I'm all right. I don't want to talk about it right now, and I press the issue because I don't like the
mhm,
uncertainty hanging in the air. I'm not good with that. It takes me off my game. And in
mhm.
my current circumstance, it usually doesn't take more than one request. Say, look, honey, if I did something or said something, I want to apologize for it, but I'm not aware of what it was. So tell me. And we open up the conversation, and the conversation gets concluded. And usually there's a hug involved or a peck on the cheek or something. It's
And you move
completely
on, and
different.
it's put to the past. It doesn't
Yeah.
go on and on.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's a superpower to be able to do that and move on. And I think if you're not able to do that, then you probably have some work to do. And there's plenty of things like you were alluding to, like meditation and prayer and breath work and exercise. There's nothing like walking around the block to get rid of some steam. It's simple
Yeah.
stuff, but again, it ends at self-awareness because all of our
Yeah.
stuff does.
I like these last ones back to practical or practice radical accountability. And it says, Yeah, if you've realized you projected or have been overly critical, sincerely acknowledging it and saying it. And then this last one is help. It helps rebuild trust and demonstrates emotional maturity. I like that term, emotional maturity, because I don't. Some people never grow up, and their emotional maturity is as you get older, you can refine these. You're self-aware, and then you mature. You become a better communicator. You get honest with what your intentions are and your interactions with people. Some people never do. They don't mature. They're stuck in their um in what they what they've either learned or been modeled by their past relationships or often childhood. So
Yeah, I would say that's most people. Not to be not to be a skeptic, but I think it is
yeah,
most people. I mean,
yeah,
I do childish things. I sometimes, I think we all have a tendency to do some, but I think there's just like the projection thing. There's toxicity, or there's just like every once in a while you slip. Those are two
yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But we'll wrap this up. The other one is as how we communicate. This is just the assumptions you're communicating verbally, but with so much communication with texting and emailing, this takes a whole other dimension as far as difficulties of conveying your thoughts and feelings to somebody when sometimes more than half of it is done through texting or
Well,
not
in combination with that, let's go back to the 55% body language. You get no body language when you're
yeah,
texting and emailing somebody. So where's that 55% go? Right. And that's why with my kids,
absolutely.
when my kids text me once, sometimes when I text response, my response is usually one word: yes, no, cool, I'll be there in a sec, or whatever. And they text me twice, I call them. I will
Yeah.
not communicate. I will not have a conversation over text. I
But
can't do
that's
it.
we're a bygone era on that one, Mark. I'm the
I think
same
so.
way.
Yeah,
but
I
but
think so.
that's not how it is any longer. So
Well, isn't it
anyway,
to conclude, suffice it to say, if 55% of body language is part of your communication and you eliminate that, does that
mhm.
that highly increases the likelihood that there's going to be a miscommunication, you know?
How about tone? You mentioned body language. How
Yeah,
about tone?
yeah.
I don't know what
Tone.
the percentages are, but tone and timing is even more important in addition to the body language because so much just the pause of that can be interpreted completely the opposite way. So yeah, this whole, like you said, texting and communication is convenient, but man, it adds a layer of complications
Yeah,
to
the
conveying those
the
thoughts.
heightened possibility of miscommunicating or offending somebody is just real. It's just real.
Yeah.
I've gotten text messages from plenty of people thinking, "What the fuck?" And then they're going like, how did you get that out of my text message?" I didn't mean that at all, you know?
Uh,
Well, that's the end. That's the end
yeah, it
right
is.
there.
It is. That's a good ending. All
Thanks,
right. Till
Jim.
next week. Yeah.
See ya.